Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Start Something Show. This is Tina Dietz, and I'm thrilled to be with you, as always, to help you build your business oasis, the place where you will always be refreshed and nurtured. That is what we are up to creating here at the show. And today, to help us along on our journey, is Barb Stuhlemmer. Barb is a business strategist. She has a long history in the world of technology, and she turned her sights and her thoughts to business strategy after helping a number of businesses build from the ground up, especially in the medical technology industry. So looking forward to sharing her story with you today, along with some tips on being courageous in business and creating good strategy, which is the underpinnings, of course, of, I think, all success. But before we get to that, I have a very special and important public service announcement. This time of year, you hear a lot about people getting colds, getting flu shots, hunkering down for cold weather. But if you're a fan of the Start Something Show, there's a strong chance that you're afflicted with a common yet often undiagnosed condition that afflicts thousands of small business owners and entrepreneurs every year. Do your loved ones cringe or roll their eyes when you say, "I've got an idea"? Do you have Post-it notes, Evernote files, and slips of paper with hastily jotted down thoughts around your home, your office, your computer, and even your car? Are you working endlessly on projects, programs, products, and yet don't have the clients and the bank account that you desire? Then you may have shiny ball syndrome. Symptoms of shiny ball syndrome include being plagued by ideas, becoming easily distracted, starting a sentence talking about one thing and finishing it by talking about another, difficulties finishing projects, and feelings of being pulled in multiple directions. Additional symptoms may include ranting and raving about why you can't get anything done, and getting super excited at the beginning of a project, followed by extreme frustration as you get bogged down by the details. There is no cure for shiny ball syndrome, but there is help. The Superstarter community is full of people just like you who deal with shiny ball syndrome every day. You're not alone. Join up as a Superstarter and get access to our awesome Facebook group, planning tools to keep your shiny ball syndrome in check, and support to kick your butt so you can cross the finish line victoriously. Get over to thestartsomethingshow.com. You'll be glad you did. Don't suffer with shiny ball syndrome anymore. We're here for you. All right, let's get on with the show. Today I'm welcoming on to the show the lovely Barb Stuhlemmer, who is a speaker, author, past TV show host, college instructor, and advisory chair for the School of Entrepreneurship. Barb really works to strengthen the courage of business owners to take extraordinary action and reach the million or multi-million dollar income level. We're going to talk about how that happens today. She's a master business strategist, and you can connect with Barb at blitzbusinesssuccess.com. Barb, thank you so much for starting something with me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Tina. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you today. And I want to dig into I have lots of questions about the differences between, average business owners and business owners who are highly, highly successful, because I know you have a special expertise in having people move from one place to the other. But before we kind of dig into the how-to portion of things, I want to have everybody learn some more, including myself, know some more about you. So what made you want to change your life and start something?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I started in technology probably about almost 30 years ago now, and I was in medical research, and then I went into medical device manufacturing, and I was in customer support as well as got into the technical writing about 20 years ago now or so. And as a technical writer, I was an expert at what I did. I was very good. I was asked to write all the manuals, all the procedures. I know hundreds of different proprietary softwares for different companies. And so I'm really good with the technology stuff, but there was always something missing from what I found in my businesses. There was always something lacking. And it was funny, Tina, because you didn't see the pattern, or I couldn't see the pattern from inside, but every 3 to 4 years I found myself in a new position or a new job or a new company as an employee. And it's like, why am I starting over and over and over? And when my kids were small, I decided I'm not traveling to Toronto anymore to leave at 7 in the morning when they get up and get home at 7 at night when they're going to bed, because what kind of parent has children and they never get to spend time with them? And for me, that wasn't the right fit in how I wanted to be with my kids. So I started a company that did technical writing for medical device, knowing that my expertise and my connections in the industry, I'd be able to run a company that did this. And for the first 6 years, that's what I did. And over that time, all the training I got, all the money I put into training went to make me a better business owner. And I found myself more and more often wanting to help the businesses that I was working for find ways to actually leverage the documents that I was writing for them. How could they make money or save time by creating documents that I was writing for them? And I was consistently doing this for the companies, even though I wasn't charging them for that work. And there was a bunch of stuff that happened in there, but I ended up starting Blitz Business Success knowing that what I could do for business owners was much bigger and much more in line with who I was and what my soul was good at, not just what my brain was good at. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5.5 years now.
Oh, that's cool. I'm curious, also kind of based on my own experience with working for other people and having that drive to go above and beyond or to work outside of the bounds of your job description. Did you find that the companies you were working for embraced that? Or did they resist you? 'Cause that was the way I usually got myself into trouble. There were only a few places that really were like, yay, where have you been?
No, I was really pretty fortunate. I worked almost exclusively for small business for most of my life. And in small business, and these businesses were anywhere from 5 employees up to maybe 50 employees. So your traditional small business, but not your solopreneurs. And they were usually pretty open because I was somehow connected to the owner, the CEO of the company. And they were usually pretty open to ideas. And I give you a quick story of how this works when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So when I was a teenager, I worked for a company that did catering. And this was a family company. And we would cater up to 1,500, 1,200 people or something like that. So there was a big catering company. And they had a whole bunch of teenagers that they had to manage who would be looking after serving the dinner. I can remember going in and talking to the boss at the end of the day. And I sat in there and had a tea with her. And when I came out, the other teenagers were looking at me going, oh my gosh, were you in trouble? Did you get fired? And I was thinking, no, why do you think that? You're in there so long with Be the Bitch. And I realized that I thought differently than other people about who and what it was that the people who were in charge were responsible for. And because I somehow understood that they had their own challenges and responsibilities, I fit into their model. So I usually enjoyed the places I worked for. I just became bored.
Yeah, that's usually the hue and cry of the serial entrepreneur.
Isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, totally. So as you were developing your own business, you said you were spending a lot of your, what you were earning, kind of putting it back into bringing yourself up as a leader, as a business owner. So in the development of your business, what would you call kind of either, if you want to be, kind of transformed about it, you could say, a challenge you overcome. If you want to just kind of blurt it out, an epic fail that you had, that you overcame, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. Well, I think because of who I was and that explanation of what I did as a teenager, one of the things that I always did was I put everybody else on a pedestal. And I think that's why business owners liked me, is because I would come in, I would see them for bigger than who they were, and they would be these great people who were doing amazing things. How can I help them? Well, the challenge as a business owner is that it's really hard to do sales if you can't see yourself as the person who is the expert, who's the one who is actually bringing that. And I spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to do sales for myself because I couldn't sell inside this business because there were so many other experts. And everywhere I went, I would go, oh, look, they're so amazing. And they're talking to me. I'm so grateful. And like I was this tiny little person, and people saw me really differently than I saw myself. And it took a lot of work to get over that.
What would you say was an influence or a turning point for you that helped you kind of turn the corner on? Because I know that's a lot of work. Anytime we're trying to embrace a new identity for ourselves or a piece of new identity, which happens fairly regularly, especially when you're in business. What have you found really useful?
Yeah, I kept getting all this training on the how-to, and the left side of my brain loved the how-to, and I would embrace anything that was technological or had systems involved with it. If people ask me how to do things, I pretty much know exactly how to do things, or I can look it up and figure it out really quickly. And it wasn't until I had a coach who was actually very good. She's still a coach of mine and a friend. She looked at me, and she's really good with systems, and she's really good with sales. And when she spent some time talking to me, we actually spent, I think, the first 3 months just working through stuff that was my stuff, as opposed to stuff that there was no how-tos. It was all about me. So I had to keep looking back at myself. And there was a huge transition on how I viewed women as, weak and men as strong. And there was just all these memes running in my brain from my childhood or wherever that kept telling me things that weren't true. And it wasn't until she put it in front of me and said, look, this is what I see in you. This is the work we're going to do. So I had to go outside and get someone else to do the work, to help me do that work.
Well, yeah, we all do. That's kind of the beauty of coaching right there. It's being that mirror. And, one of my favorite sayings, my listeners I don't think I've said it enough to have them get sick of it. So I'm going to say it again, which is the Hugh MacLeod quote, you can't see the label of the jar you're in.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on the flip side of things, what about a triumph? What have been one of your favorite moments in your business where, you said to yourself, hey, I've arrived, or I'm really fulfilling my purpose. I'm having the success I really want to have.
Yeah, I've had a lot of accomplishments. And another thing that I do for myself is once a year, I sit down and write out 100 accomplishments. I started that by reading the book, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield, who recommends writing your accomplishments. And I have to say that I think it wasn't until I started doing VIP days for my clients, when I changed my model from a coaching model, because I never really thought of myself as a coach. I really do think of myself as a strategist, which is something a little bit different. And when I changed my model for my business from, 3, 6, and 1 year coaching, monthly coaching calls to a VIP day with support around it, and I saw the first time I did this, I was so scared going into the day, going, really, can I really do enough for these people in one day? Is there really going to be value in this? And then at the end of the day, they're all they're just vibrating. They're so excited because there's so many new things happening for them. But it's not until I started seeing people going, well, you know what? I just told someone I have a $2,000 package, and they went, okay, and just had the best sales month I've ever had in the whole time I've had a business. Or I did more in 5 hours with you than I've done in 15 years of my. So every time I hear my clients say, I am so grateful that we spent time together because now I have this in my business or my life, it means that I'm living my purpose.
It's a fabulous feeling to make a difference, especially to have people have those kind of breakthroughs and insights and, to be able to see their whole future kind of mapped out in front of them. Yeah. What is the difference between coaching and strategy that you just mentioned?
Well, the coaching model tends to be a little bit different, and we find out what it is that you want to work on, and we support you in that work forward. As a business strategist, I only work with people who are looking to grow their business. So if there's a variety of different things that they're looking for in their business, yes, there's some things that I can do for them, but it doesn't make sense for me to spend a huge amount of time, or for them, because if they're not willing to do the growth, then it doesn't make sense. So when they work with me, I know that they want to grow the business, but sometimes I see things that they may not want to change, that they may not want to work on because it doesn't make sense. But when I lay it all out for them, so I'm doing more of the work than I would if I was just a coach.
I see. So it kind of is then that space between coaching and consulting.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't like to put a lot of labels on it myself either, because I think the best people to work with are the people who know that stuff just needs to get done.
Yeah. It does. And sometimes the nice thing about understanding, and I did go get a coaching certification because I wanted the tools that allowed me to ensure that I was not stepping on someone else's agenda, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things that are really great is when you can show someone something that they didn't see before, and they go, oh, well, I've tried that. I couldn't do that. And then you show them a different path, and it's like, wow, that actually makes me money. I've never thought of doing that. Or I really didn't think I could afford to do that, and now you've shown me how I can afford it. And those are the great wins when you're helping that way.
Yeah. Kind of along the same lines, we were talking about identity and talking about process and growth and all of that. I've seen this term come up in your writing several times. You refer to someone putting on their CEO hat.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I have a program called Put on Your CEO Hat, and it's a process that we go through that helps people identify all the roles that they have in their business. I mean, as a business owner, we recognize that we do everything, and people just put it all together as we do everything. But when we sit down and we actually do the work of, picking it apart and seeing what it is, and I get people to actually create an organizational chart for their one-person business or for their three-person business or whatnot. And what I find is that, you have about somewhere between 30 and 40 hats in your business, and only one of them is the CEO. And unless you can afford to hire someone into that position, you have to be the CEO. And what other positions do you want? Do you always want 40 other positions? And if you do, how are you planning on growing your business? So this is one of the ways I can find out whether someone's actually interested in growing their business. And it also helps me help them figure out how they can offload the work. So there's a variety of other steps in there that create a system that allows them to figure out how they're going to offload the work and where they're going to start with that.
That's excellent. Now, where's your sweet spot, like in terms of the clients that you with? What do you look for in your clients that then when they come to you, you say, yeah, you know what? They're in the perfect place for me to work with them.
Yeah. Well, I talk about, I say, around 100,000 or something like that. But you know what? I've got clients who aren't at $100,000. I've got clients that are $500,000 or more, clients who've had $1 million companies and are starting again. So the money isn't the component. It really is the mindset around what they are willing to do with their business. So if they come to me and they say, I really need to grow my business, I want to know what that looks like and what I can do, because I have no more time and no more money, and I know that there's a lot more people I need to serve. That's usually who I'm looking at, someone who wants to serve more people and just can't figure out how to make the business they have fit a model that they don't yet understand.
And I mentioned at the top of our interview that I had some questions about, the difference that you've seen in entrepreneurs, either kind of a before or after snapshot, or, folks who kind of, they eat their business, as they say, puts food on the table, but they are constantly in that money struggle, client struggle, customer struggle mode, or frenzy, just a time frenzy. And those folks who achieve, much more massive success and consistent, steady, large business growth. What have you noticed as the difference in those kind of two groups, either in their practices or in their mindset?
It's interesting, and there's a lot of people who have done a lot of research on this. One person that I like, Bill Murphy, who wrote a book, The Intelligent Entrepreneur, has created this, and this information around, what are the 10 rules of successful entrepreneurship? And I can't remember all the rules, but there are components of what we have to be willing to do. And I think that the people who are most successful are lifelong learners. They're willing to be the ones who take responsibility, whether it's good or bad, whether they have something to celebrate or a failure to overcome. And I think that the people who struggle, they spend a lot of time focused on the failures as being, I failed at that, so that doesn't work. And then they stop looking at it, right? So I think it's really an internal thing. It's really who we are, and it's not innate. You don't have to be born with it. I do believe that everybody can learn the skills of entrepreneurship.
Well, yeah, and you do some work with education in the School of Entrepreneurship at the college level, right?
Yes.
Are you noticing any differences generationally with younger folks who are interested in entrepreneurship versus us? Let's put it.
No, I think because when you have a class, you have a variety of different people that has the gamut of what people are willing to do. And I see the same potentials happening in the group. It would be interesting to actually do some kind of statistics on it to see if the numbers work out the same, but I'd have to figure out what the metrics are for that. But I do see students in there that basically just want to have a job, and I see students in there that are looking at how can I create like a huge business where I can make lots of money and hire lots of people and stuff like that. And yesterday was the first day for the new semester. I have about 34 students. So that was the question I asked them, Tina. So it's funny that you asked me this. And I started out, so how many of you are really hoping to someday start a business and create something that you can make lots of money at? And really, 3 people in the room put up their hands out of 33. It was surprising.
What about the rest of them?
Yeah, well, I said, so how many of you think that somewhere down the road, entrepreneurship might be something that you want to do, that you might actually start a business if everything works out? And I got about half the room at that time. I said, how many of you just want to have a job where someone pays you and you can maybe become a manager and make more money? And that the other half of the room basically took that. So there's still, even when they're taking entrepreneurship because it sounds interesting and, something that they either it's an option or they had to take it for their program, they still don't necessarily want to take the risk that comes along with making the change. Because the risk is really in the change, not necessarily in the doing. And
that makes sense to me because I think what is the statistic, about 10% of people end up being entrepreneurs, I think.
Really? Is that all?
It's really not. It's not that high in terms of ownership. Now, things are changing because the job landscape is changing and so many more positions are now either contract or freelance. And that whole world opening up has really changed things. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future because it's actually the developing world that has a huge head start on the freelancer mindset, which is different than the entrepreneur mindset. And we could probably talk all day about that. And and so I think that the Western nations are going to find themselves playing a bit of catch up, or maybe already are finding that because the developing nations are ahead of creating companies and organizations and using the tools and outlets that are available for that contract and freelance type of work.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of puts things on its head. I was reading somewhere, you and I could probably dig into the research some more on this, that something like 60 or 70% of positions in the next 20 years will move to a contract or freelance model. And I don't know if it'll be that high. I think that's a bit speculative, but I definitely see a big trend moving in that direction, that's for sure.
Yeah, even at the college level. So I've noticed at the college level, every time someone retires, they don't hire another full-time person back in. They are slowly getting rid of the full-time positions. They're taking in the part-time and sessional and the variety of different positions that don't require the same kind of commitment from the college. And if something that big, like that kind of bureaucracy is also going to part-time, then I can see that those numbers might be, it may not be contract and freelance, but it may be part-time and contract and freelance as opposed to full-time, and we'll be doing more than one thing in our lives.
Yeah, well, I think then that makes us trendsetters, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. No, the education world, honestly, I could have quite a rant about that. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think it does, having been in the education world and university world for, 10 plus years myself, I think it's a great disservice to students, especially college students, to have a majority of part-time instructors that aren't fully 100% invested in the school. Not that those of us who have taught adjunct aren't passionate about teaching, but it's very different having someone who has an office on campus and has that presence and availability and focus to be there for the students and develop curriculum and all of those things. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's got two sides to it, and you're right. I know that when I talk to my students, I say, and if you want to talk to me, I do have an office here, but I'm never here because I own a business. So if you want to talk to me, you have to schedule a time for us to get together, and then I'll make myself available to you. So they don't have access to me the way they would if I was a full-time teacher. I'm not invested in as much in what's going on in the school and how it can be developed and whatnot. But that said, I am also a chair on one of the advisory boards, so I connect myself to the program differently. But generally, the part-time people who are there, they're just there to teach, and they don't have the same insights into what's going on in the school. The other side, though, Tina, is that with the changes that they're making, especially in college, where students come to college to learn from people who are doing. You have people who've been teachers there for 20 years.
Tenure, yes.
Yeah. And they have tenure, and they don't have the skills to be able to teach what's new and, what needs to be taught. Like, you have to teach WordPress all of a sudden. It's like, I don't know how to teach WordPress, but that's my course this year. And because they're full-time, they get to choose which ones they want to take. So, and some of the other things they're changing too is they're bringing in, we only want part-time teachers, but you need to have a master's or a PhD. And it's like, what are you looking for? Like, there's a confusion as to what they're looking for in supporting the students that need to go through there. So, yeah, I think there needs to be another look at what's expected for the students and what's expected for the people that work for them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that getting rid of the tenure system would actually alleviate a lot of the issue myself personally, but that's maybe a story for another day.
Big barrel of monkeys, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, coming back around then to entrepreneurship, you and I are going to be talking some more on the Backstage Pass, which I'm really looking forward to. What are you going to teach us?
Well, I thought we would talk about, how to get more than 24 hours out of your day, because one of the things I hear so much from people, in fact, it's not just clients, it's not just entrepreneurs, it's everyone. It's just, I don't have time. I don't have time for whatever it is. And if our whole life goes by and we didn't have time for the things that we need to have, the things that we want to spend time with, our children, our families, or whatever, and we pass that by, we live a life of regret. And that's not a happy way of living. You can't be successful. You can't really do anything to your greatest value when you can't at least look after your own self. So let's look at time.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I know that when we bring strategy to that, it changes everything. So I'm really looking forward to your insights, because I know that I'm no different than anyone else. And I know I want to get more than 24 hours in a day. I've been looking for that wormhole forever. So that'll be awesome. So Superstars, make sure you join us at thestartsomethingshow.com and become a member so that you can check out all of our experts' backstage passes, because we're basically building on-demand library for you of incredible training on the ground in time from people who are out there doing it right now and making it happen, and who are experts in what they do. So that is what that's all about. So head on over to thestartsomethingshow.com and check out our membership that includes the Backstage Pass interviews and courses. So Barb, thank you so much for joining me here today. I've got one more question for you.
Okay.
If everything that you were doing was kind of wiped away and you had, your knowledge and all that, but you didn't have all the resources and infrastructure that you've built over the years, what are some of the first things you do to start something tomorrow?
Assuming that you didn't take away my relationships, or if you did, I always start with relationships. I mean, I think that's one of the key resources that we have. So you said you took my resources away. That means I've lost my relationships. The first thing I do is go out and make new relationships with people and make new connections and find the people that can help me do what I want to do. I mean, as an entrepreneur, the opportunities are still the same if I still have all my abilities to make it happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Barb. It's been great having you on the show.
Oh, thank you, Tina. This has been fun.
And Superstarters, you've heard me say it before. I'll say it again. Get out there and make it happen this week. We are here to support you. It's all about building 10,000 thriving businesses. Are you one of them? Join us at thestartsomethingshow.com for all the show notes on this episode and all of our episodes and resources. And we will see you on the Backstage Pass as well as next week on the Start Something Show.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.